Hello, Vividith family. How's everyone doing? Today, I've got a very special guest, Mark Attwood. I'm sure you're very familiar with him. Thrilled to have him on the show. I have a bit of a UK connection as well. Been following his work for a very long time and love his poetic take on the Great Awakening as well. Mark, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to meet you, and it's great to. I've been looking at your work recently, and it's great to see something going on in South Africa, positive. And you're holding events as well, and I think that really grabbed my attention. I thought that's really good stuff. I think that's very important right now.
Yeah, so in my 3D life, doing for 20 years, I had a marketing company. I kind of wound that down because I didn't really resonate with all the very consumerist kind of approach to business. So I've taken a slightly different focus, but part of what I have been doing is hosting big events, owning big events like polo events. So I've conceptualized and owned and put on many different large scale and small intimate luxury events. And so I thought for Vivid Earth, we really, I see a need for people to have community. A lot of us are quite lonely on this journey. We might be the only one in our families that are awake. And I've noticed that a lot of people are craving that human connection. So I thought, it is only in one town for now, but let's at least start somewhere. So we're doing a small event in Cape Town next Saturday, the 12th, and just, getting community together, learning together, empowering the community and give them a chance to interact and build. What I'd really like to see happen is build parallel communities. We don't like what we see the government and the WF doing. Well, let's start creating what we do want to see instead of giving them more energy. So that's really what it's about.
Yeah, 100%. 2 years basically locked down, and then last year I just went travel. I traveled for like 4 months, and meeting people after what we've been through, well, we're still in it, has just been extraordinary. It is an extraordinary thing. Are you in touch with Michael Tellinger down there?
No, actually, but I'm planning to touch base with him because he's doing phenomenal work as well, and has done some really interesting archaeological work, on the origins of humankind, as you know, and he's working on the One Small Town project. So I do intend to get him on the show at some point. Yeah, very interesting stuff. And you're doing some events as well, which is marvelous. I see you doing a fantastic event in Manchester soon.
Yeah, Manchester. I did an event there last year, in between touring America and running a retreat in the Sahara, and it was really funny how that happened because, and this is a good example of manifesting stuff. So I presented the Great Awakening show with Charlie Ward and all those guys in, I think it was May, in Birmingham, and then we were going to book Wembley Arena to do another one, but then we got the rug pulled from under our feet by the bosses there. And then I just spoke out loud to somebody. I said, there must be somebody in my audience that is awake and has a venue. And 2 days later, I got an email from the monastery in Manchester, which is an architectural wonder. It's a Rosicrucian built, well, it's like a cathedral. It's stunning, and it's in the middle of a housing estate in Manchester. And we did an event there in I think it was October, and about 450 people came, and it was really special. So I decided to do it again. So we're doing it in April, and then the following week we're doing a gala dinner at a hotel in Ireland, because it's, the show with both events for me are about celebrating and being positive and meeting people, and it can't be underestimated how powerful it is, especially as most of my audience, and probably yours, are light workers, whether they know it or not. And when you get 400 or 500 light workers in a room, especially in a place that resonates like the monastery, because it's like a great big crystal, really, it has a massive effect for miles and miles around. So yeah, I think that's great, and I'm glad to see you're doing it down there, because we need, people were afraid to go out. People were afraid to, during 2020, I remember having secret meetings with people because we didn't want to be seen together, so yeah. It is a very positive sign, is what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way.
Yeah, and to really take this movement to the next level and just be loud and proud about it. We've been in the beginning stages of me diving down the rabbit hole, and I was like, I didn't even tell many people because I was like, oh, it's politically not really correct going down these avenues. And, eventually I started speaking out a little bit more. And then like last year, a couple of months ago, I think it was 8-9 months ago, I thought, okay, now I'm going to launch a channel and actually bring it forward. But one is actually so, cautious about this thing, and we shouldn't be. We should be loud and proud. Why do we allow the globalists to make us feel like we cannot be loud and proud about what we are doing, the Great Awakening? So it really is time to stand together and unite as a community and get the word out, spread the good news.
Well, they shove their pride down our noses into our faces all the time. I was at a cash point in England last week, and it said, blah, blah, building society, proud to support pride. And it was like this LGBTQRXYZ flag on the cash point. And I'm like, oh God, you can't. So I've been enjoying Twitter at the moment because since Musk or the Musk character took it over, I've just been testing how much you can actually say. Testing the free speech algorithm, and still there, strangely enough. I went viral last week, something like 400,000 views on a video, which is nuts. So, I'm a big believer in using the cabal's tools.
Was that your
Sorry, there's a bit of a time lag.
Yeah, we do. I don't know which line. Was that your poem thing that went viral?
No, my higher self. I was visiting my mum in Birmingham for her birthday, and all day I kept getting nagged. You need to go on Twitter and make a video about how you don't hate vaccinated people. And I was like, yeah, because I think this is a time for unity, and a lot of people got it just because they were forced to by we're going to lose their jobs. Biggest psychological warfare operation in history. So I think there's a danger that people like us start going, oh, the fucking sheep are this, and because they're calling us anti-vaxxers, and we're sort of, people are starting to call themselves things like purebloods, and I can see this division happening. And that's not good. That's not where we need to be. We need to put our arms around our brothers and sisters, and say, look, you were duped. We're here to help you. That's why we stood up early. But it's interesting what you said about speaking out, and because I got told to start a YouTube channel, and I was reluctant to do it because I had a marketing business as well, and I'd spoken about this kind of thing, SRA and the New World Order and everything, on Facebook for about 15 years, but never done it on YouTube because I thought it would jeopardize my business. And then I ended up going on the Charlie Ward show and saying my first memory was being recruited by demons when I was about 3 years old. And I was like, I came off the show and I was like, oh my God, did I just say that out loud in public? Oh, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. And now it's like, there's nothing I won't talk about because we have to stand up. I mean, I did a tweet the other day saying I am a proud anti-vaxxer. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. What? Am I an anti? Yeah, I am an anti-vaxxer. Yeah, because they're calling us anti-vaxxers, right? As if it's like you crazy,
a disease or something.
You dangerous people. What? I saw people queuing up to go into church in 2021 with masks on, and I went up to them and said, "Why are you going into a church with a mask on?" They were like, "Because COVID." I said, "But do you think God got it wrong? Got what wrong? Your immune system? No. So why are you wearing a mask?" You're doing something blatantly satanic in a church. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's time to speak out, no matter what, what we may risk with this old world that we were part of. We have to, we have this once in a lifetime opportunity, this window of opportunity as we shift from the dark ages, almost as we can call it, to the golden age. And we want to take as many people with us as possible, wake as many people up as possible. So there's no more room to, stand around and beat around the bush. We have to come forward and do what we need to do. And if we have a voice, we've got to use it. Otherwise, we're going to regret it in a couple of decades. We're going to say, I wish I joined the fight. I really wish I just did that because look at what was at stake. And, that's what I said to myself last year. If you can propel yourself forward 30 years and think back at the crazy times that we're going through now, And what is the risk of not participating? There's a bigger risk of not participating than there is in actually participating in this movement.
Yeah, well, I very much did all of this for my kids, but all the kids that have gone missing and been abused and mutilated over the years. It's like 1 billion of them. It's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
and at the beginning, it was very difficult because my kids were just embarrassed. You know, they were like, oh, "Dad's on YouTube. That's really embarrassing." He's like I'm a boomer to them. But I you know, I've one of them said they thought I was in a cult, and I'm like, oh God, it's gonna keep going, because they will look back one day and go, oh, my dad did something, and that's all I really want. And you can't.
Yeah.
How can you go through this and not stand up? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely. We have no choice, and it's an historic moment in time. So we've got to help this process along and do what we need to do to be part of this movement. Use whatever skills we have, whatever influence we have, to move this movement forward and to the tipping point.
That's right. And I looked at your website and I watched one of your videos earlier, and I was really impressed by the fact that you're saying the same thing, which is like, we've just got to take action now. You know, this is what we're waiting for. Because I think one of the interesting things, I don't know if you found this, but one of the interesting things about the truth movement is there's been a huge amount of people kind of stagnant because they're expecting a currency revaluation, an RV. They're expecting XRP to be worth $100,000 tomorrow. They're expecting AMC shares to go through the roof. And I've noticed, I've been talking about this for about 18 months, and they're kind of just saying, well, I'm going to have, I had it last week. A friend of mine said, oh, I'm going to get all 100 billion quid by the end of the week. And I went, really? You're sitting there waiting for that? Why don't you just get up and do something? And I was speaking to Catherine McBean at the weekend from the PHA, People's Health Alliance. I don't know if you've heard about that in the UK.
Yeah.
And that's starting to spread to Australia and other parts of the world. And she's literally, one woman stood up and said, right, we're going to build an alternative. And that's what they're doing it right now. It's absolutely brilliant. Because the NHS, I don't know what it's like in South Africa. The NHS is about to collapse in on itself.
Yeah.
And what's going to be there? And I think God is asking us or waiting for us to stand up, because the more that we do, the quicker this is over.
Absolutely. We can't wait for the white hats to come and save us. We've got to meet them halfway. We've got to show them that we want to be free. We want to be sovereign, and we have our own power, and that we're prepared to take responsibility, for our own living. Because unless we learn this lesson now, we learn how to be free, how to be sovereign. What does that mean? To take responsibility of our own life. Even that means not being reliant on the government at all. Start cutting yourself off from those institutions. We don't need them. And in the UK, it's even more difficult because everyone has, all these things that they're dependent on, and their pension funds and all these things that the government give, and that's how they control you. So even if you have to walk away from whatever, we have to want to be free, and we've got to meet them halfway, because otherwise, this thing is not going to happen. We've got to move it, quantum leap it forward.
Totally agree. How is it in South Africa anyway? Because I've not spoken to anybody from South Africa for about a year.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, often there's quite bad reports about South Africa, and obviously, our government infrastructure is in a mess right now. And interestingly enough, the information about what's really going on as far as this military operation is a little bit more difficult to figure out in South Africa. I know a lot more about the US and what's going on there than I am about South Africa, but we can see a certain movie starting to play out and certain characters playing their part. So I do believe something positive is happening behind the scenes and taking the cabal out, because like many countries, we also, owned by the monarchy and the whole, corrupt Rothschild banking system, pretty much. So it's about removing that head of the snake. So I think it's slowly but surely, moving forward. But our infrastructure, like our power infrastructure, is busy collapsing. We have blackouts like, 3 or 4 per day now. They call it scheduled load shedding. So we've got to constantly watch the schedule and see when is there going to be a blackout so we can plan around it. So it's pretty chaotic, and we I do expect it to become a lot more chaotic in days and weeks to come. But we've just got to stay strong and not buy into the fear porn, and create the change that we want to see.
And what's the vaccine take-up rate down there?
I don't know the percentage, but interestingly enough, a lot of Africans are very awake.
That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
I'm talking about the sort of traditional tribal African people. They don't generally buy into that kind of stuff. It's funny enough, as I'm sure in the UK and everywhere else as well. I always say it's the most educated that are the most brainwashed. Those that are much more connected with their heritage and their old tribal wisdom, they actually much more awake than the rest of the so-called highly educated upper middle, to upper middle class. So yeah, we actually have a big community of people that are ready to step forward. I see your name, the way you write it tells me you're probably, if not already a state national, fully aware of how to kind of emancipate yourself from the system. And funny enough, a lot of the tribes in South Africa, they already know this stuff, and they're already fully up to speed on things like common law and sovereignty, and how to free themselves from being citizens, which we all know is being an employee or under ownership of the state or the government. So yeah, it's interesting to see that. But as far as a lot of my peers go, and the people in the educated sector of society in the upper middle class, they are unfortunately still very, very, most of them have been jabadooed, and they're going to have to deal with the consequences soon. A lot of them still don't even think anything wrong with it. So they're going to be waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat when they realize what's going on.
Yeah, I've never been to South Africa, but I've lived in North Africa for 4 years, and I was there in Morocco just 3 times before Christmas last year. And the educated people in Marrakesh absolutely think I'm a complete nutter, right? Because they all hate Trump and they all took the vaccine, blah blah blah, and they think Trump's a racist. But then when I went down the coast, down to the Sahara, there was a guy in a hanout, which is a little shop for those that don't know, and little Moroccan guy selling cigarettes and stuff and bottles of water, and he was waxing lyrical. He was quoting philosophy, Shakespeare, and I got a picture. I got a fake dollar bill from my wallet that had Donald Trump's face on, and I showed him it, and he just grabbed it and he goes, "Mwah!" kissed the sky, and so I love this man. And I was like, really? I didn't know what his reaction would be. He said, yeah, this man speaks the truth. And these people are connected to the earth. They're connected to God. They're far, less the Western kind of satanic civilization that a lot of us have grown up in is a complete misnomer to them. They just don't buy into it at all. So that was good to see.
Very, very true.
Yeah, but it's such an interesting couple of years. I mean, I call this whole time spiritual quarantine, because that's what it's when who was I was talking to Ricardo Bossi this morning, the leader of the Australia One Party.
Yeah, I love him.
Oh, he's amazing. And he came out with some great lines, and they've completely gone now because I've been working.
He has a good way of with words. Absolutely. You as well, of course.
Well, I don't, I think he's one of the best public speakers I've ever seen, like Donald Trump is. A lot of these, people speaking from the heart and not afraid to say it how it is, lose the temper, swear a bit occasionally. We're human beings, right? And that's we've not been allowed to be human because we've been surrounded by all these fake people all this time. I mean, I've said for the last 40 years, if the aliens come down and say, take me to your leader, I'd be like really fucking embarrassed. You look at some of all the prime ministers Britain's had, they're all pedophiles. They're just fucking monsters, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to take you to the leader. I'll take you to the pub instead.
I just had this thought this morning, I was going to do a video on, thank goodness fake is dead, because I really feel like that's what people are craving now. They're craving authenticity. They're craving real people. No one's watching those puppets on CNN anymore. Those perfectly polished puppets who are just, reading from a script. They want to hear it from real people. They want authentic conversations. They don't want this fakery anymore. And what a relief to be getting rid of fake and what's the other word? Pretentiousness.
Yeah. I mean, most of us are just recording from our living rooms and our kitchens.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's about the content. It's about the conversation. It's not about, the glitz and the glam and the studio lighting.
No, so I'm interested in your journey. How did you? When did it hit you between the eyes? Oh.
I think I've always been somewhat awake. I've just been very busy with my 3D life for way too long. I was always a bit of a rebel. I always questioned things as a child, as I think many of us do. We kind of born rebels with the cause. We're not afraid to ask the hard questions and to apply critical thinking. But I was so busy building a career and a business, successful business, and I dealt with consumerism in its extreme form. My focus was luxury brands. It's all about selling people stuff at incredible price, the stuff that they don't need and was never going to make them happy. So, but in 2020, obviously, like many, I had a big awakening when I realized something was very wrong with the world. And I started diving down the rabbit holes, and the one leads to the other. And then I think what really shook me, obviously, is the missing children and what's happening in the tunnels and all these horrific stuff, which I think we've all watched some of those videos and documentaries and thought, oh my gosh, it's like, we've got to do something. So yeah, like many, I only really jumped into action in, sort of midway through 2020. And I started 2.5 years of very intensive research, like obsessive research, like the amount of stuff that I read, the amount of videos that I've watched is like hours and hours a day. I just couldn't stop myself, until I was like, well, I've got all this information. What am I going to do now? I better, start helping with the whole awakening process. So that led me to creating the channel and the platform.
And your website is Vivid Earth. I'm trying to find it because I .org.
Yeah. And interesting, I designed this logo like 10 years ago. Well, I didn't design it. I got a designer to design it because my marketing business was called Vivid Luxury. And then I had a business called Vivid Privé. So I had a whole play on the word of Vivid, and I was going to create the Vivid Group. And I designed Vivid Earth 10 years ago, thinking one day I will do something, with natural products or something about the earth. And then it hit me like last year that this is how it's going to use Vivid Earth, because I want to be a co-creator of this vivid new earth. And I thought, well, it works, it fits. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny. I've just been on your site and saw a quote from Dolores Cannon. I'm talking about her all the time.
I love her.
Yeah, I mean, she just nailed it. And if you guys watching this have not heard of her, go and look her up and check some of her videos, because she came up with this concept of what do you call it? Scouts coming in. They're in their 90s now. The warriors coming in, the healers coming in, the bridges coming in, the architects coming in. These waves of souls, and I found that hilarious because my kids took the piss out of me, and they'd say, "Dad, all your subscribers are middle-aged women," and I'm going, "Well, that's because they're all the same as we're all part of that age group that you resonate with, because it's when you find the people that are on the same wavelength as you, you'll often find they're the similar strata." But I have been finding some younger people coming in recently. I've found a few spiritual healers, and there's it's great to see the younger ones coming in and doing it and standing up as well, especially with TikTok and stuff like that, because they're getting massive coverage. Are you seeing any new blood come in?
Yes, I am. It's encouraging to see a lot of sort of the indigos, the 20-somethings that are also awake. But similarly, I'd say about 50-50. The other 50% are deeply, deeply uh, brainwashed into the system, and it's so difficult for kids these days, with everything that they have to contend with online. It's they really targeting these kids, so it's not easy to escape this kind of thing. But interesting that you mentioned the middle-aged woman. I don't know what it is. There's something about when a woman gets to a certain age that something happens. It's like, some sort of awakening, and some sort of wisdom switch gets switched on. So, kids may be looking at this and thinking, it's just a bunch of old ladies, but there's something about the wisdom of a middle-aged woman that cannot be underestimated. And I found it as well. I mean, a big part of my audience is like women between the ages of 50 and 70, interestingly, because that's when many of them wake up. And sometimes it's having to go through something difficult in life as well, that, kind of pushes you into a corner, pushes you between a rock and a hard place, where you really start asking the difficult questions of life, and starting to, find out what is there to life? Why am I here? What am I here to do? And so, it's natural.
Yeah, I mean, never underestimate the power of women and this feminine energy rising. I think it's all to do with that, the age of Aquarius. And yeah, you're right, that innate wisdom. You wouldn't mess with a lioness. Do you know what I mean? And the children are at stake. The children are at stake. So,
absolutely.
For a couple of years, I was like, where are all the men? You're literally, where are they? I mean, I did a retreat in the Sahara. One man came and the rest were 49 women. It was like, there's your straw poll right there. And they're all amazing people. And that's what it's just, I think what we're all obviously waiting for things to kick off and stuff like that. But these power structures they are an illusion, but they're still there. And I think that's really frustrating. I just can't wait to burn down the TV stations. That's the first thing I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like the BBC may be the first one to go from the looks of it.
I really hope so. I mean, I've written about the BBC. I stopped paying my license when I last lived in the UK, like nearly 9 or 10 years ago. And, anybody watching this in the UK, or I don't know, do you have TV licenses in South Africa?
We do. I don't watch any TV anymore. So,
well, you can very easily stop paying your TV license, and a bailiff will come, and then they'll ask you your name, and you don't answer that because you enter a contract as soon as you do that, and you just say, "I refute your implied right of access to this property. Please leave," and then they leave. And that's it. You've got the power. It's just the fear. I did a meme about 8 years ago saying the world is run on yellow paint and red ink, because that's all it takes to put the fear into people. They change the color of the letter, the debt demand, and then people go, "Oh, I'm going to pay it." I mean, people commit suicide over these things. It's insane.
Yeah. It's insane what they did to society over a couple of decades. They got us all in a corner, fearing them. And the thing is, they work for us. We pay their salaries. They are our servants, these, self-appointed government officials. We pay their salaries. They are servants. And why should we fear them? So it's about mentally getting that in your head first, because it's generational now. It's so difficult snapping out of that very old programming.
Yeah, it really isn't. I remember my dad was abused as a kid by the village lay preacher, and I confronted my nan about this before she died, and I said, why didn't you do anything? And she just turned to me and she said, because we were scared. And it hit me right there and then how powerful society has been. I mean, in this country, the Catholic priests were raping the kids all day long, and nobody dare speak out against them, because the priest was the most revered character in the town or the village. And it is incredibly, it's all compartmentalized but massively powerful, a way of controlling people without them even noticing it, because the amount of people that just didn't want to speak up and didn't want to be ridiculed. And that's exactly what happened with the masks here. Loads of people knew it was bollocks, but they wear it because they didn't want Mary down the road shouting at them in the shop, which is why it's a time for unity and compassion, because it did take a lot of courage to stand up at the beginning of this. And, if you've got anybody watching this who feels like they're ready to just start talking. What are they going to do? Shoot us all? And the other thing is, you're an eternal soul. You're not, you've got nothing to lose. In fact, everything to gain. You get everything to gain by standing up. Right down.
Absolutely. But as you say, I think, you know, I always tell people, you should feel blessed for having gotten that clarion call in 2020 to say, do not do this. There's something wrong with this jabber thing. Do not do this. Not everyone got that call. Some people truly were so brainwashed, they just believed it was the right thing to do. So, you know, we should have we want to feel vindicated for finally being recognized as being on the right side of history. But at the same time, we got to be compassionate with these people, because many of them truly did what they thought was the right thing at the time. So we got to unify now, because they want us divided. And the thing is, there are still a lot of people that we can bring over to our side that can sort of realize what's really going on. And we are the majority. And, you know, if we unite, we can be incredibly strong. This is an evolutionary test for humankind.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's you know, people bandy around terms like, this is the greatest time to be alive on the planet. This is like the ascension. This is blah, blah, blah. And it's true. It is.
Yeah.
And if you can observe yourself in it, you can actually enjoy it.
Absolutely. And to think about, we chose to come here at this very time. And, you know, many of these like starseeds or volunteers or whatever you want to call it, we chose to come here, and they needed a bunch of brave souls to come and turn the ship around. So, you know, we should be patting ourselves on the back. We're the best of the best.
Well, you don't want to, yeah.
You don't want to gloat about that to other people, but it's also about, you know, feel blessed that you're one of the ones that are heading this movement. But at the same time, let's get the rest of the people over to our side. Let's educate them. Let's be kind and compassionate. Let's be patient. Let's, you know, shine our lights so that we can raise the vibration of this planet, so we can meet this ascension process halfway. We can make it easier for ourselves, more enjoyable.
Yeah, well, patience is certainly something we're all having to learn. I thought this would be over by Christmas 2020. We're still here.
Oh.
I did.
Every time it's like December 2020. Oh, no. June 2021. And just the goalpost keeps moving, but it's a very, very complex operation. We have to accept that. You know, when we look back on this time in 20 years from now, we'll say, but what was 2 or 3 years? Why were we so impatient? Look at how complex that military operation really was. You know, 2 to 3 years, just hang in there, guys. It's going to happen. Just, I mean, don't give up.
The vastness of it is beyond, almost beyond imagination, isn't it?
Yeah. I've spent some time just trying to think of every aspect of society. If you just think of Jasara, what all the elements of society that it touches, the whole legal system. Think about how many court cases are currently in the system. What happens to all those cases that are halfway in the process? It's a very complex thing, and it touches every part of society. Think of the currency revaluation. Like, think about everything that will touch. All of the property that people own all over the world. What, you know, the value of that will suddenly change. Like, if you have dollars and you own a property somewhere, and suddenly, you know, it's the whole system. It's complex. I almost cannot even fathom it. But so, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time, but at the same time, it could happen very quickly as well.
Yeah, well, you know, I've been getting glimpses of things. Like I saw a 6D sun last week. I've seen a dragon made of light. I've seen I've seen a triangular UFO in my garden. You know, I've seen elementals. Ooh. I've met people that have been up on UFOs. I mean, it's just amazing, the stuff that's coming.
Yeah.
You know? And
we definitely already in. Sorry, we're already in fourth density. That's why you're seeing these things. So that's why you're seeing elementals. A lot of us are probably in 5D in, you know, a lot of our lives already. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I first heard about 5D about 10 years. Sorry.
Freezing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're freezing this end. we have an issue.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you just about.
Okay, I can hear you.
We have a technical problem.
Yeah, sorry, I think my connection is a bit unstable. Must be all the load shedding, but should be okay now, hopefully.
Bit better. Where were we?
5D, 6D.
5D. Yeah. Well, I first heard about it about 10 years ago, and I couldn't get my head around it for ages. And in the last couple of years, it's all starting to make sense, and it's a transition. It's not. Although do you think there's going to be a big event?
Yeah, I think there could be, but I think it's already, little events are starting to happen already. We've had all these solar flares, we've had the Schumann resonance bounce off the hook, bounce around, and so I think there's a lot of little events. There could be one big event. I think it's very possible, but maybe not. Maybe it will be a gradual transition.
Well, Q said scare event necessary.
Yeah. I think the scare event for me is to, Earthlings have to learn a lesson. There's no way we can go back. So that lesson, people have to wake up, and we've got to get rid of all nefarious activities. So there may be needing a scare event to unite people, to people realize what is really important in life. All the stuff that they deem important, things and material wealth and status and education, all these things that we always thought was important. So there might be a scare event that will teach Earthlings at large that, we have to finally unite and really value what's important in life. So for me, that's almost what that scare event necessary signifies. But that's just my opinion. Who knows?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And part of the fun of this is not actually knowing what's coming. I mean, we're all chasing information all the time, but it always comes back to the same thing. The only intel that matters is what's in here. And your connection. So we're getting there.
And with that, with that is the knowing that there's nothing to fear, no fear, absolutely no fear. Even though we know there may be a scare event, we can never buy into fear porn again. And if we know we have a connection with spirit and that everything is happening the way it should be, then there's nothing to be afraid of.
Good wisdom down in South Africa. And how big is this event you're doing this weekend? What exactly are you doing?
So it's a half-day event. It's quite small. We'll be about 30-40 people. It's really just to get us started. Hopefully this is something that'll grow, something we'll take to other cities as well. At some point, I'd love to have like some sort of truth tour in South Africa, bring a couple of you guys down here. I think people would absolutely love that. But right now, this event is to get us started, to bring community. And we're going to have 3 panel discussions. The first one will be on sovereignty and common law. Right. I think a lot of people, don't think it's possible for them to be sovereign and to be, free. And so the first panel is really an organization called SA Jural Committee and the Gift of Truth, who's really, a bunch of incredible volunteers that teaches people about common law and how to take their power back, how to, in South Africa, you call it emancipation. In the US, you call it repudiating or citizenship, but it's basically the same thing. So you become a state, how to become a state national, how to have a land, patent, how to claim back your own property, how to create an express trust from which you can operate, tax-free. And all these tools of, the truth is that the rich and famous know all these secrets. The whole of Congress, all, our government ministers and the wealthy, they know these tricks and tools, and they're all sovereign. They just keep it secret. So we're saying now, let's create a movement. Let's get thousands of people to be sovereign. You don't need to be rich to be sovereign. And once we just take our energy away from the government system, they no longer have jurisdiction on us. So I'm very excited about that first panel. It will just be an introduction to the whole subject. Hopefully we'll have more conferences from there. And then the other two panels, we have a panel with intuitive healer. She's also a bit of a clairvoyant. For example, she saw the Turkey and Middle East earthquakes days before she got this vision that there was going to be earthquakes in Turkey and the Middle East. Well, yesterday we saw the news, or today, massive news of earthquakes. Anyway, she's also a healer. So we're getting her on a panel just to talk about 2023, giving people tools and empowering them how they can really take care of them in 2023, going through these chaotic times, and giving them some insight. And then we have another panel on, with somebody that's the founder of a natural skincare brand in South Africa. And if I think about doing business with a 5D mentality, it's her. So we're going to talk about how to do business with a 5D mentality and how to see money as energy, and her experience in building a successful business in that space. So yeah, and there's going to be questions and answers. There's going to be opportunity to meet one another and really creating these parallel communities and societies, so we can start co-creating a new earth that's outside of this very artificial transhumanist agenda that they have in store for us.
That's absolutely brilliant. You're doing all the stuff, all the good stuff, and it's there's so many things there. I mean, what you're doing with the common law thing is a bit like. Are you familiar with Lewis Herms and Screw Big Guns?
Yes.
Truth Tour? They just did Truth Tour 3 with doing the same thing, just getting people, just getting the knowledge out there and getting people to take action on it. I did I can't remember what it's called, the UCC code thing in the States, where I removed myself. Then I wrote to all the heads of state here and said, you've got 30 days to respond and blah, blah, blah. And then I did something where it's great, actually. It is a bit scary for people, but you've got the power if you're watching this. But what you just said about 5D business, I've been going on about this for a couple of years. 5D business, you have to, we're still in a financial system. Maybe where we're headed, there's going to be no money, but that's going to take a long time, I think. And in the meantime, we still have to eat. We still have to, if we're making content like this, we have to fund this content. So I've been trying to work out ways of making it as fair as possible. And one of the things that I've been doing is, pay whatever you think it's worth. And I think that's a wonderful model, because nobody gets left out. If I produce something like a webinar or something, I'll say, look, we think it's worth this, but you can pay whatever you want. And then nobody's left out.
It's like an energy exchange, what someone has and what they think it's worth to them. Precisely.
And imagine if you could do that with everything. Because that is what I think a quantum system is, because it's down to your integrity, it's down to your truth. And, are you the kind of person that leaves the right amount of money in an honesty box when you're getting eggs from a farm? Or are you one that just looks around, sees nobody's there and just takes the eggs, and that's where we are. That's why I think one of David Icke's earliest books was called Truth Vibrations. I think it was written in 98. And that is this time that we're in. It's like the only thing left, it's like the apple tree is being shaken. The only thing left is going to be truth. And it just vibrates at a certain frequency, and nothing else can survive there. And that's what this new consciousness is. It's a place where the dark just can't survive, which is why they try to grab as many of us as possible on our way out of the room, because they can't come with us. They just can't survive there. And it's all connected to the Hopi prophecy of the eagle and the condor. And it's it's not going to happen overnight, but it is. I don't know if I've told this story a couple of times on my channel. You probably haven't heard it, but I literally saw a 6D sun last week.
Yes, I saw that on your Telegram. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was invited to go to this place in Derbyshire by a woman called Gillian England, who's a really powerful healer and intuitive. And she wanted me to check out the energy of this particular place, which we did. But then we went to this stone circle, and it's the center of 9. It's where 9 ley lines cross. So it's a very, very powerful place. But I'd never heard of it. Everybody. And when I got there, I heard, because I've learned one of the things I think that's been really good over the last couple of years is that in this spiritual quarantine period, the thing that you're supposed to do is find out who you really are. So I've done loads and loads regressions, Akashic records, healing, blah, 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 numerology, as much as I can find out about myself. And some of it's nonsense and some of it's really good. And I've been told all sorts of things by people like, I'm supposed to be the son of valiant Thor. I have no idea, but it's interesting when you get this, when you get this information coming in. And but one thing that's really gone through the roof for me is my claircognizance. So it's like clairvoyancy, except you just know it. It's not like you hear the words or see the picture. You just know something. So I was in the circle and I got this. Firstly, I got this message basically said Stonehenge is fake. This is a distraction from this place because nobody knows about this place. And then the next message I got was there's a blockage over there. So I ran over this little hump of land, and there was a concrete block there. It had VR on it, Victoria Regina. Immediately knew what it was. It was the royal family blocking or messing about with this energy of the stone circle. So we cleared that energetically, and then I said, well, there must be 8 more. So there were. So there was 1 for each ley line, all 9. Then there was a 10th, and that one had GR, which is George Rex, the king, in the early part of the 20th century. And that's what they were doing. And that was really demonic. And we cleared that. And as we cleared the last one, the sun just appeared out of nowhere. It was a totally grey, overcast sky in the middle of a national park. So you can see the sky from miles. No blockages anywhere, just waves, mountains and hills. And it just came out of nowhere. And I was looking at it, and it wasn't the sun. It was like an electrical, it had like a light going around it like this. And it was all plasma, plasma in the middle of it. And I was looking right into it. And it was like it was singing to us. And
wow.
And then there were these 2 women walking their dog. They came over, they saw it. Gillian saw it. My cameraman, who's really skeptical about these things, he actually said to himself, please God, Mark's nuts. Can you show me something? You know, because he's been filming stuff with me for years, and he still doesn't believe any of it, right? But he saw it and he couldn't believe it. We were there for 25 minutes, and then these colors came out of it, like this purple came out, this blue. And I knew it was I'm looking at 6D, and it was almost like an animation. That's the interesting thing. And the spaceship that I saw a year and a half ago, similar. It looked like it was an animation. It's a different type of reality. It's kind of hyper real.
Yes.
You know,
I've seen New Earth like that as well. Like plasma energy, the colors are so vivid. I don't know, I've had visions of that as well, and that feels exactly like what you've seen. It does feel like a super reality almost.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've done lots of plant medicine and had some very, very strong and vivid experiences with ayahuasca, and that is kind of similar because, you know, in ayahuasca there was always this little character. It was like I was being taken through a gate that was unlocking, getting into this dimension. That's what I think the spirit of ayahuasca does. And there's this little character. It's like a little cartoon robot, but you can't ever look at him directly. He's always in the corner of your eye. So you're aware of him being there, but you can't look him straight in the face. It's really bizarre. And he takes you through these locked gates, and then suddenly you're in this other dimension. And my memory of that is it was very kind of like animated. You know, and incredible, you know, especially when you see people change into animals in front of you. That is amazing, because you're seeing their spirit animal, and literally they turn into birds, they turn into deer. You know, good stuff. You know, stepping stone.
You all supposedly have a spirit animal, right? So you were just able to see that.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us are becoming shamans without necessarily realizing it, and it's a wonderful thing to do. And in fact, I just bought myself a new drum. It's here somewhere, so I can bang on that.
Nice.
And do some because you don't need drugs or plants to do any of this. You could actually just do it on your own. Do it with drums. Do it with meditation.
Absolutely, it's like little what do you call that? Things that you swim with when you're a little kid. Armbands. So all these tools are just those little armbands to teach us how to swim. But eventually, when we can swim, we don't need those, tools and support structures anymore, because we'll know how to do it ourselves. But right now, it's good. It's fine. And talking about the ley lines, I've heard that as well. Like, I think they are hiding the real the energy portals. They're actually hiding them, and as you say, Stonehenge is there to distract us. We think that's where it actually is. Meanwhile, I went the same. I was in Mauritius a couple of months ago. I saw you worked in Mauritius as well. I
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
connecting with you on LinkedIn.
That's hilarious.
But I went to the yeah. My husband's actually from Mauritius, so we have a strong connection, a strong love for the island as well.
I love it there.
But yeah, it's magical. So we went to the energy vortex when we were there a couple of months ago. And then, I was speaking to one of like a local shaman, Indian shaman as well. And she said to me, no, the vortex is not there. It's actually in the sea. It's like a couple of 100 meters away from there. She said, didn't you wonder why there was a cemetery right behind this supposed energy vortex? I said, yeah, I did think it was a little bit weird. And again, it's to distract us, and to kind of lead us off the garden path. And so we don't have access to these real energy portals because they can be very powerful. And they're afraid of that. On the one hand, they're afraid of the power of that. On the other hand, maybe there are people that are actually protecting some of those vortexes.
That's the even having this conversation is funny from a perspective of 3 years ago for me, because it's like, I talk about this stuff like it's everyday occurrence now, and it's a wonderful thing. And this knowledge is just being returned, to us, and it's actually a beautiful thing. I think the only hard thing really is just all these people dropping dead, which is that's the really tough part of this. But
yeah,
it's their soul contracts, and you don't actually die. There's no such thing as death. And I think that's another lesson we've had to learn, because it's the fear of death that makes it so easy to control.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, that's what ayahuasca does to a lot of people. Is a lot of people, my friends that have done it, have described being strangled to death on their journey, because they had to get rid of the fear of death. And it's ancient wisdom.
Yeah, you face your deepest fear in that time.
You do. All right, look, it's been wonderful chatting to you. I'm out of time now. I've got to go and do some dad stuff. You're doing fantastic stuff down in South Africa, Anina. I'd love to come and visit one day.
Thank you, Mark.
Please keep it up, and give my love. Give my love to everybody that comes to the event at the weekend. That sounds great. It's really positive stuff. It's great to hear.
Wonderful. Well, hopefully we can get you to South Africa at some point.
Love to come.
It would be wonderful to have you here. I met you I didn't meet you virtually. Became aware of you because I was following Janine Morijo, and then you guys started doing some episodes together. And I'd love to have you both here at some point. So I'm sure we can make it a reality at some point. Hopefully in 2023.
Well, you gotta get the Kabbalah guru guy there. I really like him.
Yeah, he's fun as well. Eli Weber.
Yeah, Janine introduced me to him when we were in the States, and I like watching his videos. He's a great guy. Yeah, let's all get together, because the more we get together, the more powerful we become.
Absolutely.
So look, have a wonderful day. It's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, Mark. Same here. Speak to you soon.
Bye bye.
God bless. Bye.